Villain for All Seasons, episode 12. I'm Dan.
Ben, what's up?
Ben, you told me you have a pretty good icebreaker this week.
So we in our last episode we talked about a story that was still developing, and we wanted to give you just an update on it. Uh, so after our discussion last week, just so let you know that we're keeping following this story. After our discussion last week, Dan actually found some YouTube footage and sent it over to me, and I had to watch. And it turns out the rumors are true, and Farrakhan fucking smokes it on the violin.
Yeah, it's an awesome listen. I highly recommend YouTube Farrakhan violin
Farrakhan violin. He's doing, I believe it's Mendelssohn's violin sonata in E minor.
without sheet music, right?
With no sheet music. The man is up there, center stage, plays the whole thing from memory, and he is fucking incredible. Like, he's like world class.
My little known fact, little aside here, my fiance played violin quite well as a kid, but could never reach Farrakhan level.
No, she'll never be Farrakhan.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
She also didn't know
he.
who Farrakhan was, so that was a great conversation.
Oh, shame on her. Living with you, I would have thought she'd know all about it by now. So Farrakhan absolutely kills it. He's up there with, I don't know where, I assume he's playing in New York, but that's where his church is, right?
Maybe.
That's something we should probably know. We'll keep following the developing story. But he's up there with him and a black conductor and basically all white orchestra, which I think is a good flex.
Yeah, that is a good flex. Especially, I think that must have been recorded in the 90s. So
yeah, well, it said in the comments that it was his 60th birthday.
How old is Farrakhan? All right. Farrakhan is, holy shit. Farrakhan's 87 years old.
He looks good.
Looks great. I mean,
he's in good shape.
Was banned from Facebook in 2019. You lived long enough to be banned by Facebook.
Before it was cool. Well, I guess that's right, when it was becoming cool. What did he say? Something about the Jews controlling the weather or something, I imagine.
Yeah. He was banned from Facebook in 2019 along with other public figures considered to be extremists. Hold on, I just want to see if they give us here's the lead from Chicago Sun-Times. Louis Farrakhan banned from Facebook over policies on violence, hate.
So he's pro-hate?
Yeah, pro-hate. Farrakhan's official Facebook and Instagram pages have had more than 1 million likes and followers. Well, we'll follow up next week with with the exciting conclusion as to why Farrakhan was banned from social media networks.
Yeah, this is our new segment for the pod. Farrakhan Watch. Interested parties need to know.
Yeah. Before we go into what we're going to be talking about this week, we will be speaking to Liz Requena about the tragic killing of Adam Toledo, and really just, I guess, just horrible policing nationwide, if not internationally. And I guess Ben Dante Wright, who was killed in Minneapolis, where you're from, I just wanted to give you the stage on this, see what you're thinking about.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't think I have anything. I don't know what there really is to say about it. I mean, I was out having my first pint on last Monday because the UK opened up from lockdown, and I was standing with a few friends out, and so we were out in this park having a drink, and I got a New York Times update on my phone that was a statement released from the Minneapolis police that allegedly this police officer, whose name I can't remember, mistook her service revolver, it probably wasn't a revolver, her firearm, her gun, for her taser. She thought she was pointing her taser at him and accidentally pulled her gun and shot him. And when I was in mixed company, I pulled out my phone, read that, and out loud said, "Oh, fuck off." this has been, everybody's talking about this, and there's not much to say about it other than like they're two different weapons. They're two different sizes, shapes. One of them is bright yellow, weighs significantly less than a 9mm does. This woman was a 26-year veteran of the force and was also tasked with training young officers. I don't know what they were going for with trying to does that make it better? It was like, oh, okay, she didn't mean to execute this person. She's just actually a fucking idiot who should be nowhere near a weapon in her life. A weapon that, again, like for anybody who hasn't seen any of the, there's a lot of videos going around social media and stuff of cops going, this is where your gun is on your dominant side. The butt is pointed back. This is where your taser is on your non-dominant side. The butt is pointed forward. I mean, it's just so, and in the footage, she does yell taser, 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 which I didn't know is requisite for tasering somebody. Nobody stopped her, obviously. And I don't know. I mean, like, let's say that's true. I guess, like, let's take her at her word that she made this mistake. Then, like, that's this whole new problem where you're in such a state of panic immediately that you lose all, like, cognitive physical function, grab the wrong thing and shoot somebody. It's like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what to say about it. It's like, is that supposed to make it better? Is that supposed to make us feel better about this, that it was the dumbest accident on the face of the earth? Because like, it doesn't really change the narrative to me. Like, if that's how spooked you get from a simple interaction with a young black man, like, why is that? Yeah, I don't know. Why is that better? What does that change about the narrative effectively?
Yeah, I totally agree. And this is something that always struck me about arguments with Mike Brown, of course, when they tried to share I'm sure you remember this, when they tried to share the footage of him in the convenience store right before the altercation. And of course, like, it tries to pin him as like this, quote, thug, unquote. And it's just like, this is how you subdue somebody. This is how you subdue like an 18-year-old. I think, I'll tell you right, was like 21, right?
Yeah.
He's very young. And like, this is really how you enforce law. I mean, mistake or not, it's just like so what if he had like run off in his car? And like, I understand that like that could be a hazard to other people. Yet at the same time, like, I'm not sure if you read any of the charges that were against him. Like, they were all like misdemeanor at like the very most, right? I think the one was for smoking a joint, or he had some warrants out for his arrest.
Yeah, well, yeah, he had a warrant out for his arrest because he had like a misdemeanor possession charge where he owed like $75. Like a weed ticket in Minnesota is not very expensive. I know from experience. And in, COVID world wasn't able to make payments on it or something. And yeah, what do you say about it? It's fucking stupid and it's fucking horrible. And and I just want to going back to like the taser thing. This is just a point I've always wanted to make about, or a point that's been made, sorry, is that you always hear from cops like, you don't know how dangerous this is or how scary it is to go out there and put your life on the line, which, by the way, statistically, that's not true. I know if you're a cop, you can, there is the possibility of having, putting yourself in harm's way and stuff, but statistically it's actually not as dangerous of a job as a lot of other jobs are. So like that whole thing of like, it's the most dangerous job in the country. No, it's not. Stop saying that. And if that is affecting your behavior so much that you panic and you're scared and you're wary of everything, then you probably shouldn't be doing that fucking job. I'm not saying I want to do the job. But if you're like, you don't know how scary it is, and it's like, well, then fucking retire, dumbass. Go be a bartender.
Yeah, I think this might have been something we talked about in previous shows, but I think that, if you break this down into like the political view of things, I think a lot of white people who are very, wear the Blue Lives Matter flag, etc., like they really think that policing is like an Andy Griffith show.
Yeah.
Just like you like sit in the drunk tank for a night and it's totally fine, or like they leave the keys and by the bar, so it's like you can go out whenever you want to go out or something like that. And maybe for them it is like that, this community policing. But I remember one thing that always struck me is that I think Jesse Jackson said this. It's like, a lot of people in these communities that are affected by negative policing, they feel like they're an occupying force, the people on the squad or whatever. So I don't know really where I'm going with this. I just think that it's,
well, they do look at it like that. And
how could you not?
And how could you not? Exactly. Because like, as we've seen progressively over the last 20 years, as a result of forever wars and our defense budget and shit, that like, we know that police forces are getting, excess military grade hardware. They're getting like literal tanks and assault weapons. And we saw, that's what we really started to see that clearly in Ferguson, where you have, cops with assault rifles and camouflage for some fucking reason. And like, they really see themselves as like special forces operators, only, incompetent and poorly trained.
I was just gonna say, it's interesting too. You speak about like the bloated military budget, and how if I'm living in a poorer neighborhood and I just hear how much is spent on the military budget versus like how much is invested in my community, my schools, my daily life, transit. Yeah, no, it's and like, by not confronting these issues, abolish the police is becoming more literal than an initiative. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I think that people really just they're if you didn't notice the lack of purpose, like, it's starting to become very obvious. Pat Robinson, the evangelical dude, even came out against cops, which was interesting.
I didn't hear about that. That's quite the development.
Yeah.
I am pro-police, folks. I think we need the police. We need their servants, and they do a good job. But if they don't stop this onslaught, they cannot do this. The police in Virginia picked up a lieutenant in the Army and began to give him trouble. And our state police are highly trained. But why they don't stop this? And this thing is going on in Minnesota, but the Derek Chauvin, they ought to put him under the jail. He has caused so much trouble by kneeling on the death of George Floyd. It's just, on his neck. It's just terrible what's happening. And the police, why don't they open their eyes to what the public relations are? They've got to stop this stuff.
Maybe they need more training. Consistent training. I don't mean training.
The problem is you've got to pay them more. We don't have the finest in the police department. They're low-paid people, Terry. They don't get adequate. It's not a question of training. It's a question of hiring a more superior workforce, and we aren't doing it. But we need police. We need them, and we need to honor them, and I'm all for it. But at the same time, we cannot have a bunch of clowns running around who are underpaid and who really are not the best and brightest. We've got to have the best in there.
Yeah, Dante Wright was, of course, like, that was the first part of the week. And then the Adam Toledo shooting, which happened actually, I think a few weeks prior, but the Chicago police finally released the video. But I wanted to just, you said something when we were talking in the pre-show about like how the difference between Minnesota and Chicago with these shootings, and I just thought I'd let you say that. Thought it was interesting.
Yeah, just I think that and this also happened last year with George Floyd, and then I believe Laquan McDonald came out after that. It's hard to keep the order of these things straight because they're so fucking frequent. But yeah, Minneapolis keeps showing its rearing its ugly head as its shitty police forces and its very overt racism, and then Chicago just refuses to be one-upped, and they always come in and really take the cake and like take it to the next level.
Yeah, for those who don't know, Adam Toledo was 13.
He's a seventh grader.
Yeah, and I haven't watched the video. We can talk about that in a minute, but my reading was that he was told to stop, did stop, put his hands in the air, and was still shot. Right?
Yeah.
And Liz will be able to talk about this a little bit more in depth and just kind of like some of the socioeconomic factors that come into play, because she grew up in the same area of Chicago that Adam Toledo was currently residing in at the time of his death. Anyways, I guess going back to the video, I don't know. I feel like we should watch these videos in some way. In other ways, it is hard for me to press play.
Yeah, I think that, I don't know. I think there's like there's arguments to both sides of it, right? Like, but if you've already been convinced by the need for policing reform or abolishing the police or something, I feel like at a point it gets sort of like torture porn. It gets a little, I don't know. I guess maybe just because you feel so beaten down by seeing it again and again and again, and we know what's in that footage. So I don't know. And I think different people would have different thoughts on how it should be handled. But I haven't watched the video yet either. I don't know if I will. Because I don't know if it's not gonna effectively change my mind one way or the other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't need to be persuaded.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, as you said in the pre-show, this is kind of like a deja vu to how we were feeling in 2020.
Yeah, well, and especially in Minneapolis, I have a lot of friends who are getting out there on the front lines and protesting and stuff, and it still confounds me that when there's the most high-profile police killing trial of our lifetime, maybe ever, probably the most like highly visible trial since like Rodney King, or at least or I guess since Ferguson. Sorry, it just confounds me that that police chiefs aren't like, hey guys, let's be on our best behavior while literally the whole fucking world is watching. But they don't care, and they don't really see anything wrong with it, and they don't really see anything wrong. Just like if you've watched the Derek Chauvin killing George Floyd, I mean, he knows he's on film. He's aware of that, and it doesn't bother him because they want us to see this shit, I think. And yeah, so now we have a repeat of this, and friends of mine posting on social media pictures of around Minneapolis where there's just fucking stormtroopers everywhere. They immediately imposed a curfew right after the Dante Wright killing happened, like a 7 p.m. curfew too, which was just like outlandish. Like how I don't understand. I don't understand the logic behind it, probably because there isn't much in that. And this is why I do think abolishing the police is something that needs to happen, is because like they clearly don't see this as a problem that needs to be fixed.
It reminds me last year, last summer, kind of at the height of all this stuff in Greenpoint, where I was living at the time in Brooklyn, they had put like flowers for everybody who had been killed by police violence. And there was a video of this cop. They put it like on the stairs in front of the precinct, right? And there was this video of this cop who came out afterwards and was kicking them off the stairs, stomping on them and kicking them off the stairs.
Oh yeah, they're such big fucking babies too. Going back to cops being like, you don't know how hard this fucking job is. Do you remember? I think it was last year, or I can't remember when it came out, but it was some New York cops, and they're all like fat fucking like sausage fingered cops in their shitty like golfing shirts or whatever, and he's like doing like a press conference, and he's like, stop fucking treating us like animals. We're people too. Cops are important. And it's just like big babies. Like they're big fucking babies with guns that they sometimes confuse for tasers, apparently. And like they need to be treated as such. Like get the fuck rid of them. The flower thing, it's like, oh, I'm sorry, did we hurt your feelings by grieving over all the murder that happens? I'm sorry, is that upsetting you, officer? Shut the fuck up.
What a good moment to come out and show some fucking sympathy. That was an opportune time.
Try and, even if it's disingenuous, because there are those there have been a lot of those videos of like the good cops or whatever, and I'm not saying that good cops don't exist, but I also do hate the like, obviously we know that like the few bad apples thing doesn't hold any water anymore, but a lot of those videos of like, cops coming out and showing solidarity and stuff, like I sometimes question the sincerity of those moves. Like they feel very much like PR. I'm not saying they aren't all sincere, but sometimes they feel very much like PR and they'll come off that way. But from a purely like advertising cynical perspective, like that was a chance to have some good PR. And instead you made yourself a fucking meme.
Yeah.
By again but they don't have like the mental acuity to recognize a moment. They just act on, I mean, the flowers thing is a great example of they just act on instinct and emotion.
Yeah.
It's just like, hey, wait a second. Like, maybe we should have that be part of police training, is teaching them the definition of the word optics. Like, yeah, it's like, hey, maybe don't throw a little hissy fit just because someone upset you.
I know that you were half joking about that, but I don't think it's a bad idea.
Teaching some PR training.
Yeah, I mean, you could rephrase it as de-escalation tactics.
Yeah. There's whatever gets the job done.
Speaking of Chauvin, I do think he's going to go down. But again, you had an interesting opinion about this when we spoke earlier.
Yeah, I think he's going to go down. A lot of people I speak to are very skeptical of this, and I'll be happy to eat crow. I won't be happy, but I will eat crow if I have to on this. I do think he's going to go down. I worry that he'll get the lesser charge, which would be, that's why they've worked hard to get the murder in the third degree rather than the second degree. Mm-hmm. So that's a possibility. I think he will go down just because I think he's sort of it's so bad, and it's had such an uprising that I think the powers that be in policing unions and stuff, this is why you see cops. I think we may have talked about this in the last episode, but this is why you saw cops testifying against him. This is why you saw a police chief testifying against him and speaking out against him. And I'm willing to argue that none of that would have happened had this not been this level of high visibility.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like if they could have swept this under the rug, they absolutely would have, no question about it. But I think this is a chance for them to try and reinforce the few bad apples stereotype of going, no, he was one of the bad ones. We got rid of him. We did the right thing. Nothing needs to effectively change. That's what I think that is. And that's why I think he will go down.
Yeah, I think you're totally right there. And this ties into Adam Toledo and a lot of these unfortunate killings, murders. The deception, right? I read with Toledo, they did claim initially that he had a gun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's
walk that
it's
back.
Like,
which
yeah,
walk that back is their kind of phrasing, by the way. They lied and had to retract their lie.
Yeah, let me walk that back. We actually mistakenly said it was another thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's like that story of Baltimore cops that like just had BB guns on them. Just like
by happenstance.
Abolish the fucking police. If that's the true state of affairs, and people with a straight face can tell me the system isn't broken. The Baltimore Police Department planned ahead. That actually, I would argue, is murder in the first degree. That sounds pretty fucking premeditated. It's just like, hey guys, things might get hairy and we might accidentally shoot somebody who's unarmed. So let's just cover our asses by making sure that we have a toy gun on us that plausible deniability and that shit. Like, is that not premeditated murder? Because it really fucking sounds like it to me.
Yeah.
And again, big babies. They're big babies. We're like, well, we're gonna shoot people. Like, that's gonna happen. I don't know how to change that part of our behavior. So let's make sure we have, some props that we can throw down just in case.
What is it like in the UK from your experience? Because I think famously they don't carry guns, right?
No, normal uniform. I mean, obviously there are armed officers, but they're like special, like it's like it's more like a SWAT team or something, or
Right.
not necessarily a whole SWAT team, but there are armed police, but they're not patrolling.
Hmm.
So
Go ahead.
police who are patrolling are not packing.
Is it similar to the US where you see more of these armed police? Do you feel like that's like, I don't know if the perception is like this is on the rise versus like the English Bobby who doesn't carry a
Oh yeah,
weapon?
you don't see armed police just standing around anywhere.
Yeah, I guess what I'm asking is like, is there this idea or this perception that like the special forces are on the rise, similar to the US, like it's becoming increasingly militarized in civilian life?
I don't know. I don't think so, because it's not like, it's not like if you go to like Paris and you go to the Eiffel Tower, you'll see their like special police, which by the way, Parisian police are jacked. They're all like 6'2", and they look like Green Berets. Like they're all, yeah, they're scary. But yeah, you'll see them with assault rifles outside of like under the Eiffel Tower and stuff like that. Now I think there's something about like there'll be like a group of 3 and one will have the assault rifle, one of them carries the ammo or something. I can't remember if that's actually true or not. But there's no presence like that that I'm aware of in the UK, unless unless a bunch of brazen women decide to have a candlelight visual. We can't be having that.
Yeah,
But I think even for that, I don't think they had armed guards for that. Like armed police people are something that have to be called in.
Is this because it's a less violent society?
No, I mean, well, the UK used to be the capital of knife crime, like in the Western world, and like it has been on the rise. I don't really think that like Americans are intrinsically more violent than anywhere else, necessarily. The UK is certainly violent. Like people are violent everywhere. I don't think I don't think that's something that you can attach to a country necessarily. But it's just like the tools of the trade aren't as readily available. So, it's, if there were AR-15s sold everywhere over here, I'm sure we would have more mass shootings over here, but they're not sold over here. So it's not exactly the same problem. It is very, if you go to Glasgow, it's still very stabby. Not to dive into like the like a Second Amendment argument, but like people are still going to find ways to murder people. They're just not going to be able to do it, mow down 30 of them in 5 minutes.
I guess maybe I can be more specific.
What the fuck are you talking about? I don't know.
Well, no, the catching someone that is perpetuating some kind of violent crime with a knife or whatever. I don't know. I guess you don't shoot them because again, they don't have guns. Like, do you think that's the reason, or you just don't hear about it really that often over there?
Yeah, I mean, they have different restraint tactics over here. I saw a video a few years ago that was showing like officer training of how they could subdue a crazed person with a knife, and they use sort of like a I don't know, it was like a weighted ball at the end of like a rope kind of to. It was like it was like sort of something you'd see in like ancient, like in like a kung fu movie. But yeah, they have different tactics for subduing a person with a knife. There are, believe it or not, America, there are ways to do it without just gunning somebody down. These tactics exist.
That reminds me of you ever hear how to use a nightstick correctly?
No.
Yeah, I mean, the only time I've ever seen someone use a nightstick is in the Rodney King video when they're beating him over the head with one. But apparently, a nightstick, you're supposed to use it to like hit someone's, like, I guess, pressure points, or their, if they do have some kind of weapon, you can use that to, like, you're trained to hit certain areas that would like kind of momentarily stun them enough for you to take.
Oh yeah. That's a common thing. Like you like hitting like the side of the thigh.
Yeah.
Well, if you have it, like, that's why you see like kickboxers or MMA fighters, they'll kick to the side of the thigh. You've got a big you've got like obviously the like big artery running through there. So if you get a good hit to the side of the thigh, it's it's a non-lethal, physical, but it still kind of takes a person's leg out from under them and stuns their leg. So yeah, there's pretty and it's pretty simple to accomplish stuff like that.
Yeah.
Again, without going all Chicago in the 60s, just beating the shit out of people over the head with them.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we're going to talk a little bit more about this one with Liz, and I think it'll be a good conversation. I'm looking forward to that, and she can have a little bit more brilliance to our opining here. Yeah. Speaking of things feeling like deja vu, we have a Russia update that I just gripes about. I don't know. This really ties into the Afghanistan pullout. But I guess before I get into Russia, what did you think about the Afghanistan pullout?
I mean, it's good. I will believe it when I see it, of course, because we've been hearing this line for 15 years or whatever. Like, everybody's talked about it. I thought, watching Biden's speech on it, and he gave from the same room where Bush declared war, symbolically. I think that was good optics, to speak of optics. And I don't know, I feel like he said all the right things as far as like, we shouldn't fucking be there. We're not accomplishing anything. I guess again, I'll believe it when I see it. There's obviously only so much to be, which we can get into, but there's only so much to be excited about because it's not really a real pullout. And then, the more interesting thing, I think, has just been seeing like people from the Pentagon and then by extension, people in the media losing their fucking minds over us leaving Afghanistan, because apparently no one wants us to.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think?
No, I think that's a good call out. There have been a lot of like sudden concerns about women's rights in Afghanistan.
Yeah, all of a sudden we're really concerned about that because things have been going so well under our watchful eye.
Yeah, I guess it's an interesting date in my mind. Like, of course it's 9/11, so it's like there has that historical context to it, but I do wonder what changes in, what is it, like that's a little under 6 months from now. And I'm not saying that like these things don't take some kind of planning, but the original pullout date was May 1st. And I mean, I knew that was always going to be a stretch goal, but like what had they been doing since May 1st was the plan initially?
I don't see any effective change in the date other than like them wanting to make sure it wasn't Trump's accomplishment. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it was just like a fuck you to Trump in that way to make sure it wasn't like a Trump initiative that did it. Other than, the kind of like lame symbolism of 9/11, bullshit patriotism. I don't know. It seemed very.
I do think it's unequivocally good. The thought.
Yeah, no, it's definitely good. I think the argument now is that we're just privatizing the war, which we've been doing forever. Like, let's not forget there's a huge presence of private contractors there. Obviously, the CIA is still going to be there. Special forces are going to be there. I don't know how much it effectively changes. And it is worrisome that these kind of symbolic gestures. Again, I don't want to shit on it because it is a good thing. Like, it can be a really good thing. So, and I'll be the first person to applaud it when it happens. I'm saying that because like every other journalist I respect has said that too. So I'm gonna beat them to it. I'm gonna applaud before them. But it's there. I don't want to be overly cynical about it, but at the same time, it's like this could just open up for these kind of symbolic pullouts where really we're just leaving a private force, and it's just which people like, we've talked about Eric Prince on the show before, people like that love this idea of that war and, nation building, as they like to call it, will just be completely privatized. And that's a huge problem because the public doesn't give a shit about that. So then there's really not going to be an appetite, like an anti-war appetite, like of opposition to this stuff in the same way. So that sucks. But I don't know. What do you think? I think it's generally a good thing, I guess.
Yeah, no, I think you said it right. And I think in regards to the public not caring, I think it's probably the media not caring, and thus the public is not really informed about what's going on in these kind of like mercenary armies that can develop and do bad things in our name while getting paid high dollar to do it. I want to talk about this more with the refugee count, but yeah, I feel like there's this kind of like myopic view of policy, where it's like, yeah, I'm sure there's going to be some kind of like private contractor contingent that stays behind. And this brings me to Russia, is that in the same week, we are being told that we are pulling out of Afghanistan under some kind of like anti-nation building, anti-war auspice, which is great. Again, very, very happy to hear that. Yet we, in the same week, we are saber rattling against Russia, and I just think that this kind of continues the Trump initiative, where it's like we are moving out of the Middle East so we can focus on China and Russia.
Yeah.
So I thought that was just an interesting timing wise to begin with, and then
Yeah.
the sanctions thing bothers me because I guess one aspect of the sanction things bothers me. I mean, they were expected. But the bounties, a story that again, going back to last summer, we heard that Russia had been working with the Taliban, I think, to put bounties on the head of US soldiers, which again, like the phrasing of the story just really irritates me.
Well, and it's such a fucking stupid, it was such a fucking stupid story when it came out, because it was like, do you really think that the Taliban needs a financial incentive to want to kill US soldiers? Like, what? They're like,
the Times
wait, there's money in it? Oh, now we'll do it. Okay, yeah, I never thought of it that way. Russia's paying us. It was so fucking dumb.
And at the time, there was the intelligence community said there was low to, I don't know if they said there was low to moderate, but now they're saying there was low to moderate. But even at the time, there was a lot of pushback against the story because it was really evidence free. And so when they announced the sanctions that morning, the bounties were in the same breath as the solar winds hacking, which is a reason that they were applying the sanctions, and so-called election manipulation, or alleged election manipulation, as well as the Crimea annexation, right? So later that day, news broke that no, it's the bounties aren't really involved in the sanctions at all. Yet that was on the White House website when they announced the sanctions. And again, the lead story of the day was that sanctions were announced for Russia's, quote, malign actions, unquote. And then they listed out the solar winds hacking, the election intrusion, the Crimea, and then bounties were still mentioned in that article. And then later that day, again, the news broke very silently, in my opinion, about the bounties. So I guess I'm just irritated about how these stories lead, and especially how this Russia story, is juxtaposed against Afghanistan, because it is seen as if like Biden is against war in the same way that Trump was against war, but in the same time they are having a military buildup, or at least saber rattling, which is a terrible phrase. They're raising tension, I guess, to be more specific.
I like saber rattling. I think it's cool.
I like the idea of rattling.
I think, yeah, it sounds cool. It's tight.
You know what? That kind of makes it sound like your saber is kind of in a shitty.
Yeah, you need to tighten the pommel and the scabbard and everything. Like, you probably need to take better care of your weapon if your saber's rattling. Just for all you swashbuckling folks out there, you can also check out my other podcast, which is Swordplay with Ben.
You should actually do that.
But yeah, if your saber's rattling, then you need to get some oil. Gun oil works great for caring for your weapons. Just so you know, you can buy it at any Walmart, and take better care of your weapons.
Yeah, I guess I just, clearly this one stuck a nerve with me. I want to talk about it more in a grander context in a second, but I just want to see how you felt.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you're saying. I watched, before we got on, I watched Biden's statement about the new sanctions. It's nothing new. I did, I enjoyed the choice words of having like the gall to talk about de-escalation, and in the same breath escalating things.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have any thoughts on it other than we're just like really this, I guess this goes back to what I was saying of like pulling out of Afghanistan can kind of, it's a good thing, but it can also sort of blunts the anti-war movement there, and that it's kind of out of public consciousness because it's not just like, your average enlisted soldiers going off to die. And it's not, I mean, there's an argument that we can stop wasting money over there, which we've been doing for 20 years, of billions of dollars being funneled into a war that's never going to be won or anything. So that's good, but it also is kind of rings hollow too, because pulling out of places doesn't really mean anything if the defense budget keeps going up. If you're a budget hawk, or if you're like fiscally conservative, as they like to say, and that's like a lot of like, there's like fiscally conservative, or like there's conservative people that I trust, like Sagar Enjeti talks about this, of like, it's like, look, we're not accomplishing anything over there. Yes, it's a mess, but like, obviously we're not helping, and it is a huge waste of money. And that's absolutely true. Not calling out Sagar. What up, Sagar? Friend of the show. But we're still increasing the military budget. I don't think it effectively changes anything. And then it's also just points this, we're all tired of being in the Middle East. Like, whatever side of the political spectrum you're on, I think people in the US just don't want to be there anymore. It's fucking stupid. Whether you are wherever you stand, I think it's pretty much well agreed that we haven't accomplished anything and we need to get out of there. But then it's, and then in the same, I don't know, I'm rambling on now, but then in the same breath, we're putting these resources towards attacking Putin. And it also gave me, going back to Biden's statement about de-escalating stuff, and he's talking about having a summit with Putin over the summer.
A good thing, by the way. A good thing.
A good thing, but also like I don't have a lot of faith that it's going to accomplish something from when, this talk of de-escalation is coming from a guy who, 3 or 4 weeks ago, without irony, was talking about how Putin doesn't have a soul. Like I don't expect anything from him. And, not that I don't think Putin gives a shit about any of that rhetoric. Like, I don't think he's, I don't think you're hurting.
It takes one to know one.
Yeah, which is funny. That was a flex. That was a good flex when I heard that. It was like, Putin's an OG. This is going to keep getting worse. As we've talked about with China too, this anti-China rhetoric keeps getting ramped up. We're really trying to where the Americans don't have any appetite for the Middle East. I don't really think, unless you're like a zombie who's listening to Rachel Maddow's dumbass show every night, like, I don't think your average Joe, shout out to our producer, I don't think your average Joe is really worried about Russia. More people are worried about China, and I guess economically that's okay. But I don't think people have appetite for war in general. Like, nobody asked for any of this.
I think that's a great lead into what I've been thinking about as considering this gripe, is why do I care about this issue so much? And why did I care about it for the entire 4 years of Trump? And I think it's right that people don't like war, and that's conventional wisdom, in my opinion. That's not a new thought, but it's how they are convinced into war. And I think, for me, thinking about the Russia allegations for the past 4 years and what they were leading toward, especially after Trump, I view it as, people call it a psychological operation to convince people that there is a new enemy, and there are a lot of like circumstantial evidence that point to that. The Trump administration openly admitted with the Pentagon that they were going to move out of the Middle East and focused on Russia and China. And I guess I can't see it as anything other than psychological operation to. You already had the right wing, and now you can have the left wing as well, or the so-called left wing of Democrats. And I don't know. I guess it's not that I never believed that Trump was shitty enough to contact the Russians for information on Hillary Clinton, dirt on Hillary Clinton. I think it's just more of the implications of what we're hearing from the media. And I was just wondering how you felt about that.
Yeah, I think it's easy to talk about why I care about it, because it's watching, I mean, I've never really felt aligned with the Democratic Party, but definitely more aligned with them than I am with the Republican Party. And, it's supposed to be the party of reason. It's supposed to be the party of like the working class, of anti-war and all that stuff, like being more liberal, being leftist, whatever you want to call it. And it's them doing the exact opposite. It's scaremongering. It's pushing people towards wars that are no good for anybody other than the Raytheon and Boeing and shit like that. I mean, it's a complete waste of human life and of resources, and it's exactly what I grew up with that made me become politically activated. Of this is everything we were fighting against in the early 2000s when Bush wanted to invade the Middle East, and now it's just coming from the other side in a different way. And also, not for nothing, it's fucking stupid. It doesn't make any sense. Like, all of these, this idea that like Hillary Clinton lost not from being the worst candidate ever, but from some stupid ass Russian memes about masturbation. It's like, and it's relentless. It's never stopped. And you're watching people like Rachel Maddow, who's pulling down like a 7-figure income every year, getting rich off this shit. And it's like, at this point, it's like you're no better than Bill O'Reilly or Sean Hannity or Tucker Carlson. You're the same fucking people.
And I want to bring in the domestic aspect of this too, aside from just the foreign, the geopolitical, and that's that it can really be weaponized against any kind of opposition, as we've seen. And I think that's like one of the biggest things is I'm pretty sure there's a large contingent of Hillary voters who are still convinced that Bernie Sanders is a Russian asset. Or and propped up by Russia.
And Jill Stein and Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah.
And George Galloway, and probably us if we were a little more famous.
Yeah. One day.
That is actually like a goal of mine. If we can get pegged as Russian assets, that would be high praise for this podcast. Also, I think it'll just help our viewership if we're or listenership if we're thought to be Kremlin agents, which it's kind of badass too.
We should rename the show Kremlin Talking Points.
Yeah. Kremlin Weekly.
One last thing before we get into categories, I wanted to just mention another thing I'm a little up in arms about is, did you follow the refugee count debacle that happened, I think, on Friday?
No. To be honest, I haven't been paying attention to anything lately. This is all gut reaction. I'm talking out of my ass. Basically every show. I don't read anything.
Hold on. Let me just
I read classic French literature, and that's all. So if you want to talk about Voltaire, we can do that. But otherwise.
So April 16th, breaking news, New York Times. The Biden administration will keep its cap on refugee admissions at the low level set by the Trump White House, walking back an earlier pledge. And my take on this, that got the reaction of one of my high school friends, was that I said, Biden again proving that had Trump just said mean things in a nice way, he would have gotten away with much more. And Biden later in the day did walk back this pledge, but it was more of a punt, in my opinion. I just want to quote from the Times after this, again, walking back, keep using cliches today. President Biden would limit the number of refugees allowed into the United States this year to the historically low level set by the Trump administration, reversing an earlier promise to welcome more than 60,000 people fleeing war and persecution. Next paragraph. But the move to cap the number at 15,000 prompted such an immediate backlash from Democrats and human rights activists that the White House later retreated and promised to announce a final increased number by May 15th. So I'm just wondering, is the increased number from the 60,000 or the 15,000? And why punt? I guess I just don't see it. And then lastly, the most cynical part of me thinks this might just have been a good PR move in the week. It shows that he can be persuaded by activist backlash, supposedly. But and my friend and I were arguing about this on Twitter. He's like, it just shows that he can be persuaded. He can't do what Trump did. It's like, do you give a shit about what's happening at the border where they have kept in Trump policies? They've just renamed it to nicer things.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's not a lot to say about them. We've kind of talked about this before, but this is going to be the tail of the tape for the entire Biden administration is people and like, oh man, I wanted to screenshot this. I saw someone else on my Facebook talking about like what a progressive badass Joe Biden was.
Mm-hmm.
And it was someone on my Facebook who I don't really know why we're friends. Like I actually don't know where I know this person from, but so I don't get in online arguments. I try, so I didn't comment. But which, by the way, though, if you do want to get into an online argument, hashtag VFAS podcast. I am shit posting and comment, or like I'm doing shit commenting on all sorts of stuff all the time. I'm really trying to get Breitbart to engage against me, and Soledad O'Brien, and I'm taking all comers. So if you want to have an irrational, stupid fight with somebody, it only helps our visibility. Please do it. But yeah, I think this is the thing of this is going to be the story of the entire Biden years. And like, again, not to like with Afghanistan, like if good things happen, I'm going to try and not be shitty and cynical about it. Like, and I think good things can happen, but it's just another example of the bar being set so stupidly low that anything feels like a win.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And
yeah.
And I guess my question with the refugee stuff is, we were all so up in arms about this. I mean, a lot of it was from just people's natural hatred of Trump. So there was that really cynical thing of anything he did was bad, right? But then really it was like, if you did pay attention, the person who was the architect was really like Stephen Miller, right?
Yeah.
The guy who was anti-immigrant, like when he was 17, which is fucking weird. First of all, young conservatives, weird. I don't understand it. I don't know how you have right-wing talking points when you're 17 or like, huh?
I think it's probably a good business move.
Yeah, it's smart. It's just, it's very soulless cynicism and brought on by parents and stuff. But yeah, Stephen Miller though was like a true believer back when he was writing articles about that. He was writing like anti-immigration articles back in college, and it's like, damn, dude, save some pussy for the rest of us, right? But yeah, I don't know. I guess like a Mexican dude stole his girlfriend when he was in 9th grade or something, and he had this like real. But the thing is, going from there to now, what's the difference between Stephen Miller and the people running the immigration plan in Joe Biden's? This is like kind of a hackneyed argument, but like, yes, Stephen Miller had more odious, gross things to say and had a like absurdly well documented view on this. Like, I don't think you could really I hope not find documentation of what my political opinions were on anything when I was 19 years old. But Stephen Miller has you can really track that, and he's nothing if not consistent. But yeah, what's the difference? I guess that's always my question with this is like, what's the difference between him and what's going on right now? Just because like the stuff he says is grosser and more uncomfortable. If the policy is the same, I don't know. Are they better?
I mean, he came into office with that pledge and was willing to say, no, we can't do it. And he had to retract. So I don't know. He was going to pursue it. And had there not been any kind of reaction at all, I don't know. I am, of course, happy that like some kind of activist reaction can change his mind. But
yeah.
the fact is, like,
God.
we're going to pursue it.
Yeah, I mean, let's not forget. I've said this many times now, but like politicians are lazy, unless they're crazy ideologues like Stephen Miller or whatever. But they're generally lazy. Biden is famously lazy, and has been his whole career. I mean, that's why like he's very incompetent and has been for a long time, ever since like his college days. Like he's two things. He's a pathological liar, which he always has been. And we know this about him. So anybody who wants to push back on that, I will happily debate you on that. And he's also a pathological liar and pathologically fucking lazy. So he doesn't want to do anything, really. He will do it because I kind of think his presidency is a spite fuck you to Trump, in the same way that Trump's presidency was a spiting fuck you to Obama.
Yeah.
This is like the world we're in now, where it's like the, new administration, it may as well just be a rap battle against the old administration. Like, it's just like talking about, like, all it is just talking about how much they fucking suck and how much better you are. And it's just, I feel like we're just in this dumb, vicious cycle now. Like, whoever's next is just going to be talking about how much Biden sucked.
I think this is a good way to transition into another story about crazy politicians. And we have a Pizzagaetz update.
Pizzagaetz.
And this is a long article, but it is worth your time. And you know what, like, I think Florida man is, and the idea of Florida man is a really like overused phrase, but boy, when it's right, is it right?
Here's the thing about Florida man is it has been so overly memed and so overly like it's maybe like the most saturated phrase, or like the most loaded phrase in common social media culture, that normally when things get that overblown and that oversaturated and that overused and retweeted and regrammed and made into the, this or that or the other thing, that it starts to lose all meaning. And the Florida man is the exact opposite of that. Like, Florida man, it is the scientific method, and it proves itself true every time. There's no contradictory evidence to the Florida man theory. The Florida man theory is true 100,000% of the time.
This update, I'm just going to give you the headline, and there's so much to unpack, so you have to read on your own, but I'll share some excerpts that I thought were really great. So again, the headline is, it's even weirder than you thought. How a Roger Stone acolyte and a Tiger King tax collector spawned the Matt Gaetz scandal. And this goes on to talk about a name that's been popping up in the news lately. It's Joel Greenberg. And Joel Greenberg was running for a really innocuous role in Florida politics. So yeah, he was going to be a tax collector, right? Which it's listed out in the article. Among the duties of a county tax collector is issuing driver's licenses, including collecting the fees for licenses for new residents who surrender their old IDs in order to get a Florida's driver license for their new residential address. So not really something that requires that much of your time, it seems like. But Greenberg, who again knew Matt Gaetz, really took this on to his own initiative. And I'm going to get to that in a second, but I wanted to share some of the highlights I thought that kind of tipped people off to Greenberg, and it's kind of getting closer to Gaetz as the story develops. So. Here are some of the items that, quote, were revealed in October 2020 that Greenberg spent his campaign funds on, not his personal money. By the way, this guy comes from money. So number one, he allegedly spent tens of thousands of dollars to set up the tax collector's office to be able to accept Bitcoin payments, a reform he touted as the way of the future, but was used for very few Seminole County residents. And
oh my God, yeah,
the cost.
Who in their right mind pays their fucking taxes with Bitcoin?
Right.
A currency that is on the rise and becoming more and more like, it's like, it's like you remember when 50 Cent like released an album on his website and you were able to pay for it with Bitcoin?
I did not know that.
Oh yeah, this happened a few years ago, or like before Bitcoin really blew up. But he was accepting Bitcoin payments for some reason, and ended up making millions off, probably selling 40 albums. Oh, could you imagine being someone who bought 50 Cent's stupid ass album with Bitcoin, and then you're like, I paid $90,000 for that album.
So here's some more things I thought were great. Another 90,000 was allegedly spent to build and install server equipment that was apparently to be used for Bitcoin mining. Again, this is campaign funds, which is illegal to spend on this, not your own money, even though he had the money to do it. The equipment was not properly installed or operated, however, and overheated, $7,000 in damage that wasn't covered by insurance. And then this is one that you and I both liked. It says Greenberg allegedly hired a contractor for $15,000 to install sprinkler heads on office property that could be operated remotely and pointed at petitioner groups gathering signatures for ballot issues he opposed.
That's the greatest thing I've ever heard. He wanted to have So just to clarify, this means he wanted to have remote activated sprinkler systems. I suppose there's an app for that, that he could spray people with water who were, not even protesting, but just spraying people with water. Anyway, it's very Mr. Burns-esque.
Release the hounds.
Like you get like an app alert, it's like a baby monitor, and then it's like, oh, they're back. Oh my God. I love that one. I love that one so much.
One that was been tied to Gates, and then I had just have a few more I want to go to. There was nearly 400,000 in questionable credit card charges, many of which were made on weekends or after hours. Some of these credit card charges are reportedly connected to 900 in Venmo payments that Greenberg made to young women, allegedly for sex, shortly after Gates sent Greenberg the exact amount, also over Venmo. Yeah.
I think this is like an ongoing, or this is like a developing theme that we have of just people who are bad at crimes. Don't pay your hookers with Venmo. What are you doing? Like, it was like, oh, I'm gonna go see my Coke dealer, but I gotta write him a check. Like, what?
And the reason Greenberg got caught up in all this was because he was trying to beat someone he was assured victory over in the primary. And it's this music teacher at a prep school named Brian Butte. I guess I'm pronouncing that right. He basically, Greenberg hired this guy to kind of like take down Butte. This guy, I'm trying to find his name, but anyways, he runs this site in Central Florida that talks about politics, and he just made all these anti-Butte editorials and like tried to like get him in a bunch of gotcha things. Went so far as to write the dean of the school, this high school, that Butte was engaged in like underage sex with some of his classmates, right?
I forgot about this.
Yeah, and I love this guy. He made it's called Central Florida Post, and he made a bunch of Facebook live videos that have been since taken down, but they were captured by the site that wrote this article. I just want to read this one and then read what the guy's shirt said. It says, Central Florida Post was live 1 hour ago. In all capitals, creepy Brian Butte strikes again. Women are worried in Seminole County. And his hands are kind of like outstretched. And it says, his shirt says, "Make America," and then cross, "not a bunch of whiny ass bitches," cross again. Which, where'd you get that shirt?
We will be selling copies of that shirt on our Instagram. Like and subscribe.
Yeah, I was thinking of funny merch that we can get. So yeah, stay tuned. Probably a lot of like bikinis and thongs and dog collars, maybe.
Yeah.
God, I sound like Matt Gaetz right now, I guess.
Matt Gaetz would be like, "That's a great fucking idea."
Anyways, not convinced that Matt Gaetz is innocent.
Yeah, I wanted to throw in one other thing, that he allegedly purchased firearms, body armor, and badges for himself and his senior office staff, essentially creating a security force for the tax collector's office. Former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi, a Republican and fellow Trump supporter, criticized this as improper. Greenberg was accused of impersonating a police officer after he flashed his self-issued badge to pull over a woman for speeding.
That's awesome.
I love all of it, that it had to get so high tech, because so much of this is like, if you gave like the 11-year-old version of me these kind of funds and I was more of an asshole, when I was that age that all right, what are you going to spend it on? Be like, all right, well, we need guns and we need body armor for tax collecting in Florida. Like they're like literally playing dress up. This guy's amazing. This guy is just, it's that question of it's the movie Blank Check. You remember the movie Blank Check where the kid does basically check fraud and it does frivolous spending and stuff. This is what this is. Only he gets to dress up and play cop and Mr. Burns releasing the hounds.
I've been wanting to rewatch Blank Check. I remember loving it as a kid. I think I've seen it more than 3 times probably.
Well, it's every kid's dream, right? You just get I think we should pitch this to Vernon and the Oat podcast. Maybe we could do Blank Check.
Yeah, I like that idea.
Also, I'm pretty sure that movie, the kid is supposed to get like $100 for his bike and he turns it into $1 million. And like buys a palatial mansion and every toy ever and like a Ferrari and stuff. But it was like, man, you can get a long way with $1 million back in 1996. Whatever that was. Yeah. We've said this before. We'll keep watching it, but this story really is the gift that keeps on giving. Again, innocent until proven guilty. Matt Gaetz. I'm in a court of law, proven guilty in a court of law, in the court of public opinion and common sense. He's so guilty.
Should we go into categories?
Venmoing prostitutes, goddamn.
It's owned by PayPal. You dumb fuck.
Who the fuck uses PayPal?
Okay, yeah, categories.
Yeah, let's do some categories. Where do you want to start?
I just had a non-categorized one that I thought was funny, and that's Bill Murray got talked into Ghostbusters 2 under, quote, false pretenses, unquote.
Yeah, I saw this. I didn't read it. What were the pretenses?
I didn't read it either, so let's
maybe we skip that.
Yeah, no, hold on.
That's a mulligan. Okay.
Well, hold on. I just want to say I don't remember Ghostbusters 2 being bad, but I guess I don't remember Ghostbusters 2. Was that bad?
Is that the one with the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man?
I thought
that's the first one.
Yeah. What happens?
Is that the one with Sigourney and Weaver was the Stay Puft? I don't remember either.
The second one has the painting. The evil.
The painting. Oh, I was scared of that painting when I was a kid. That painting was scary as fuck.
I don't remember the painting at all.
I don't know if I want to talk about this. This will scare me. Okay. I don't want to get spooked.
Hold on. He just said there wasn't much he actually had to say about it. This is kind of sad because it was supposedly kind of a they were talking to him about the new Ghostbusters, like the women-led Ghostbusters. And I guess the headline is about how he didn't want to do 2. He goes, I was very, very reluctant to do it, Murray said about making a sequel to his 1984 classic. I was in absolutely no hurry. I probably thought that the only reason anyone would want another one was just to make money. And I was probably the most reluctant. He said he was outfoxed after being pitched an idea for the sequel that ended up on screen. They got us all together and they pitched a story that was really great. I thought, holy cow, we could make that work. Ended up not being the story they wrote. They got us in a sequel under false pretenses.
I hate being outfoxed.
Me too.
I don't think I have any commentary on this other than, solidarity with Bill Murray.
Yeah.
It sucks to get
it sounds like a bait and switch, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's classic bait and switch, which, this is just big Hollywood tricking our most beloved stars. I do love Bill Murray.
Yeah, of course.
Fun fact, Bill Murray owns I think he still does. He used to. He was like a part owner of a minor league baseball team in Minnesota.
I didn't know that. I knew he was a Cubs fan.
The St. Paul Saints. He's actually in Space Jam wearing a St. Paul Saints hat. When he comes into play, he's got the backwards cap on.
That's awesome.
Yeah, St. Paul Saints.
So a note about Space Jam. I don't know if you guys have been following this news, but I think like the Clockwork Orange Droogs are going to be in Space Jam 2.
What?
Probably, Yeah, probably
What?
a real nobody asked for this.
What?
There's a lot of weird shit going on with Space Jam 2.
You know,
Great PR though, I guess, for getting me.
what?
I guess I got to see it now.
You know, going back to all this canceling of, you know, Dr. Seuss and stuff, and they took out Pepe Le Pew because he's, you know, a dirty French pervert.
I am Pepe Le Pew, your lover.
Fair enough. And then instead of having this problematic presence of a guy who doesn't understand consent, they're putting in the droogs.
How art thou, thou globby bottle of cheap, stinking chip oil? Come and get one in the yarbles, if you have any yarbles, you eunuch jelly thou.
I swear this is a true story.
They're not cartoons. There's no way that's true. The droogs? The traveling band of drugged up rapists? I mean, I hope that's true. That would be fucking awesome. Oh, you know, by the way, apparently they were going to do a scene for the new one, where it was LeBron teaching Pepe Le Pew about consent.
That's bullshit, right?
I heard that somewhere. I heard it. We're talking about it. They're like, nah, that's too edgy. We're just gonna put in the droogs. That's crazy. Where's your source on that?
The Mary Sue, which is a sister site of Mediaite, it says, what exactly is up with A Clockwork Orange droogs in Space Jam 2? Space Jam 2 is filled with cameos, voice changes that range from to ah to huh. That's funny. Well, in this movie, it's a bit of a stretch, but in the cameo world that is Space Jam 2, what we see among the Warner Brothers' own things are the droogs from 1971 A Clockwork Orange, based on the novel. Now, concerning the movie, this shouldn't be that since the White Outfix.
Yes, the beloved Disney characters, the droogs.
Wait, hold on. You're not wrong. This actually ties into the Pepe Le Pew thing. Okay.
I knew it.
So, according to Deadline back in March, Pepe was set to appear in a black and white Casablanca-like Rick's Cafe sequence. Pepe, playing a bartender, starts hitting on a woman at the bar played by Santa. He begins kissing her arm, which she pulls back, then slamming Pepe into the chair next to hers. She then pours her drink on Pepe, slaps him hard, sending him spinning in a stool, which she is then stopped by LeBron James' hand. James and Bugs Bunny are looking for Lola, and Pepe knows her whereabouts. Pepe then tells the guys that Penelope Cat has filled a restraining order against him. Oh, God. James makes a remark in the script that Pepe can't grab other tunes without their consent. Sweet. Hold on.
Love it. Wait,
Not
so
more
I
about
want to
the
hear the
droogs.
droogs, though.
No, they didn't give me any more info about the droogs. Shit.
I feel like you're telling tales out of school. I don't know if I believe this.
Ben, we're gonna watch the Space Jam trailer.
All right, gonna watch Space Jam. I swear to God, if we've just spent like 8 minutes talking about this with no droogs.
Well, we did find the droogs.
Oh, so the droogs are there. Okay.
All right, guys. Here we go.
Basketball camp is next weekend. You got amazing potential on the court, and I can help you get there.
That's not what I want, Dad. You never let me do what I want to do. You never let me just do me.
Hold up, wrong floor. Will Smith ain't got to deal with this.
Dad!
No! What in the Matrix? Hell. Welcome to the States.
Welcome, King James. I am the king of this domain. This is
Don Cheadle.
Where's Don?
Yeah, it's Don Cheadle. Yeah.
Fact is, if you and I play a little basketball, Pete, send this clown to the rejects.
Wait. What is this? Oh! I'm a cartoon?
Man, what's up, Doc?
I need to assemble an elite team to help get my son back.
I know what you're looking for. A dream team. Lem, shoot the ball. Let's try that again, shall we?
Welcome, James. Welcome to the Space Jam. Introducing the Goon Squad.
You gotta win this game.
Let's end this.
And get our son back. Yikes. Classic. Welcome to the Space Jam.
There they are in the back. You see him?
Oh my God, yeah. What the fuck?
Hold on.
Okay.
All right. Well, I'm really glad we got to the bottom of that. The Droogs are
Confirmed.
confirmed in the background in Space Jam. What the fuck? Okay.
How did we even get on this topic?
Important. Yeah,
Wait, hold on. One
Stay
last thing about Pepe Le Pew. If I remember correctly, it's not another skunk, right? It's just a cat that got white paint.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, was he always wanted to, he was always trying to get some with a cat, and she didn't like him because he's a skunk. So, really the real problematic thing there is like the interspecies racism there. It's very anti-skunk rhetoric. And that's really what, Glenn Beck and all of them are missing, is the subjugation of Pepe Le Pew is unfair, unfounded.
Yeah, agreed.
Anyway,
so
moving swiftly on.
you can go next. We have a few more.
Yeah, let's go into Samantha B. If you want to preface this.
Yeah, no, this is just something that we talk about in the show because it annoys us, and you're hurting our feelings if this is your first time listening. These are news stories that personally hurt our feelings, but are meant to make one segment of the population feel good. So Samantha B, she was on the Dan Rather's podcast, and he asked her, do you or do you not find yourself sometimes at least tempted to kind of pull your punches? And he goes, in other words, you, myself, and a lot of other people, more or less free swingers against President Trump. But now that Biden is in, and she interrupts. Sure, B said. And then Rather asked, do you find yourself saying, boy, I don't know. There's a nasty bit of comedy I can unload on Biden, but saying to yourself, I proved so much that I'm going to pull this punch. Do you find that happening? She goes, I can't deny that has happened. I think that's probably true across the board. You're like, okay, well, we could be making jokes about the infrastructure plan, but in general, I'm like, wow, this is great. Why would I purposely undermine something that seems to be a great idea pretty much across the board? Like, I don't need jokes to make jokes. Like, I like to make targeted jokes. I think there are more worthy targets right now. She adds a segment about what's happening on the border because we really don't understand it. We really want to understand it. So I don't know. This kind of overlap with news that makes you say no shit. I don't know. I think that
I think this harkens back to our discussion with Vernon, where we were talking about the article that came from Matt Taibbi, and it was the article, I can't remember where it came from, but there was in Washington Post or something that's saying like Biden was like impervious to impressions.
Yeah.
Which is, again, on its face, wrong. He's about as lampoonable as you could possibly be. He's easy to make fun of. And it's a no shit story in that, like, yeah, we know you people are choosing to ignore this. And this is where it's like a little bit of a conflict in satire, because is Samantha Bee or any of these other really shitty comedians obliged to make fun of this or that? I would say no, they're not journalists, but at the same time, they kind of purport themselves to be. Like, they purport themselves to be this sort of vanguard of the resistance. And they clearly aren't. Like, they're, no different than, say, like Fox News or CNN or whatever, where they choose what they want to go after. And I guess that's their choice. But it just sort of it again, it shines light on like how disingenuous these people are. And also more so, I think more really the story here is that these people are hacks. Like Samantha Bee sucks. Like her show's not funny. It's not interesting commentary, and like I'd really like this sort of as much as I loved Jon Stewart in the heyday, I really think that legacy needs to die, because I think it's really unhelpful. And it goes back to just this media blackout of giving Biden any sort of not just Biden, Biden or AOC in the squad or anybody in the Democratic Party, just giving them a total free pass. And it's just like, well, like we're not doing it because we don't want to. But it's again cloaked in this thing of like, well, he's just not that funny. It's like, no, he's hilarious. It's you're lazy and you should try harder if you want to have this image as like an adversarial comedian, which obviously she isn't. She never was. They just had their, and this is why those shows suck and why they're probably all going to be off air soon, because they refuse to fulfill what they promised.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think a lot of this, like, oh, I'm pulling punches because I agree with the policy is not necessarily true. I think that Trump was such like a moneymaker for these people that there's a sea change now. And it's kind of like almost self-fulfilling. It's just like the reason I can't make fun of this person is because I'm not making fun of this person.
Yeah, and also it's like I'm not going to make fun of them because I agree with the policies, which I don't believe. Again, I think they're lazy, so I don't think they pay that much attention to the policies, because like if you do agree with the policies, you're a piece of shit.
Yeah, and it goes back to like what we were talking about before. It's like the border suddenly became complicated after Biden got into office. And I'm not saying that like Trump's rhetoric made anything complex or anything like that. He made it more black and white, but now it's become this complex situation. It's like, okay, well, we can't make fun of this heinous policy because it's so complex. Whereas 4 months ago it was black and white for us.
Yeah.
What else do we have? Oh, I just wanted to read some John Boehner excerpts. This feels like a lifetime ago, but John Boehner used to be the Speaker of the House. Remember him? Obama years.
Boehner spelled Boehner. If you actually sound it out, his name should be John Boehner.
The original Orange Man, right? He's very orange.
He is very orange. That's true. Yeah, he's creepy. He's a creepy looking dude.
Yeah, this is a timeline that I thought was really funny. For nobody asked for this. Like I don't think anybody was asking for a John Boehner memoir, but we got it anyways. On the House, and it's the cover is Boehner like at some smoky bar.
On the House.
Yeah, it's called On the House.
That's great.
And it's him in some like smoky cigar room with like a big cigar burning next to him, and looks like a tall glass of Chianti. So
is he supposed to be like the most interesting man in the world kind of thing?
Supposedly.
Yeah.
So anyways, again, this is a timeline of excerpts that came out about John Boehner's book, and has a really great ending, so stick with me here. Says Twitter falls in love with John Boehner's new book, single greatest title and book cover in history. Again, as we just mentioned it. During an interview about the book, it says John Boehner goes wildly off script in an audio version of his memoir. And quote, he goes, "Oh, and Ted Cruz, go fuck yourself." I guess that's featured in the audiobook. So listen in.
Powerful
yeah
stuff.
Yeah Another Ted Cruz hate. He calls him quote crazy town unquote. Former Speaker John Boehner goes scorched earth on GOP, including reckless asshole Ted Cruz and jaw-dropping book excerpt. He again says John Boehner spills on shocking meeting with Roger Ailes to try to put a leash on Fox News hosts like nut quote unquote Sean Hannity. Again, tells Ted Cruz to go fuck himself in a wine-soaked recording session of his audiobook.
Hey, we've all been there. I've cozied up next to the fire with a bit of Merlot and yelled at Ted Cruz before. Fuck Ted Cruz. I want to know what Keith Olbermann thinks.
Yeah. This is where it starts to get really good. John Boehner destroys Trump in his book. Bloody insurrection, quote unquote, happened because of the election, quote, bullshit he's been shoveling, unquote. John Boehner recalls the time one of his staffers got thoroughly berated by Trump after a round of golf. quote, "This was real anger," unquote. He again talks shit about Ted Cruz. And then he talks about the Capitol riots. He goes, "Hell yes, it made me angry to watch them." He called Ted Cruz Lucifer in the flesh. One that really upset me, but we're gonna come back to that. And then it came out like kind of mid. I don't remember. This was last week, the 13th. So this is kind of like after a week of promoting his books. John Boehner wouldn't say if he would support Trump in 2024 if he ran. So he presumed it's not a no.
Not a no. Of course not.
Yeah. And anyways, this is the one I shared with the chat. It's a Stephen Colbert question. He goes, Stephen Colbert confronts John Boehner. How come Nancy Pelosi could corral her crazies and you couldn't? And for anybody who doesn't remember, Boehner basically got voted out because the Tea Party came in during the Obama years. And I think he's equating the Tea Party with the progressives. Is that right?
The squad. Yeah, I guess. Yeah. Those crazy bitches. Yeah.
Yeah. Stephen Colbert, really gotta love him, right?
Again, going back to the shitty vanguard of left comedy, the most depressing of them, because I loved Stephen Colbert at one time. But yeah,
Jon Stewart, I think.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Hard hitting stuff. I'm just looking at the cover of this book. This is hilarious. So yeah, him, smoky room, red leather chair. Like, could not be more like baiting to QAnon people, of like literal smoky dark room where like you bet there, like it looks like he's like just got done watching a Mandingo fight or something. Like this is like this is so yeah. And then on the house, this is just the memoir of like an old, like of your, like, this is your old drunk uncle talking about like, it's like glorifying himself of trying to have this sort of like Don Draper sort of aesthetic to him. Oh my God. Yeah. And yeah, very orange man.
Yeah.
God.
Is it time for gut reactions?
Nobody asked for that. Yeah, let's do, God damn it. This is my gut reaction though right here. A Washington memoir. Just like, God, he looks like such a pervert. It's like, you've grown into a very beautiful young woman. John Boehner, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, yeah, let's do gut reactions. You want to start this week?
All right, so just because Fabio was fun last week, I'm going really lowbrow. And yeah, mine are all from Fox News, so inherently lowbrow, and the stories are also lowbrow. So I think this is one that you're going to get the least laughs out of, but maybe you'll get the most laughs out of this one. I don't know. Here, I'm going to, again, gut reactions are, I'm sending Ben stories that he has not read before, and I'm getting his gut reaction. Okay. So it's in the chat.
All right, so we have Fox News Channel, and this is from Alex Heigl. Any relation? We're not sure. And so this is about music, published 5 days ago. Headline, Usher didn't use, quote, Ushbucks to pay dancers, club says. Amid social media allegations, singer used fake money. Apparently, someone in his team left some Usher dollars on the floor to promote his Vegas residency, says club's director of marketing. Going into the article a little bit, you've heard of Bitcoin, now get ready for Ushbucks. R&B singer Usher is getting flack on Twitter for allegedly using fake money with his own name and face on it at a strip club. However, the club tells Page 6 it's all a big misunderstanding. Dubbed Ushbucks by one wag on the social media site, the cash in denominations of $100, $20, and $1, not very baller, by the way, Usher, was previously seen on Usher's official social media channels stuffed in a see-through suitcase on April 3rd. The story began with a woman going by, so BEEL0OVE on Instagram, who posted pics of the money to her private account Monday. A friend of hers then shared it, tagging both strip club, Sapphire Las Vegas, shout out Sapphire, and gossip site The Shade Room, who later posted it on their own Instagram. From there, the star's supposed attempt at ushering, nice wordplay, in his own form of currency quickly spread across social media, trending on Twitter by Monday afternoon. However, reached by comment by Page 6 via email, Sapphire's director of marketing, George M. Wilson IV, told us Usher was a true gentleman and a great guest at the club. He and his crew converted thousands of real dollars to tip the girls dancing on stage and, quote, left a generous tip for the staff, exclamation point. It goes on, it ends with, the singer has yet to weigh in on the burgeoning scandal publicly. His rep wasn't available for comment. Well, you're outdoing yourself, Dan, in that first you found a story about Fabio, and then apparently Usher is still relevant.
Yeah.
All right, do we have a picture? Okay, thank you, Joe. We have
Ushbuck's coming through, I think.
Yeah.
About to spit something out.
We got a picture of the Ushbucks. Ooh, yeah. Okay, so the Ushbucks look like a normal $100 bill and a picture of Usher, which kind of looks more like Jussie Smollett, I'm just going to say. Side profile. I didn't think, we definitely need to, I don't know. I don't have much of a response to this. It's a very non-story, but it's funny that Usher is in the news at all. When was the last time he did anything? I think my main thing is if I was a R&B hip hop artist and I was going to make my own fake currency, I'd be doing like $1,000 bills, $1 million bills, like $1 bills. Really, Usher? Like, that's not tight at all. That's not balling in the slightest. But that's maybe a sign of the times of his fading career, that he can't really afford $1,000 Ushbucks.
Yeah, if it's connected by gold, you really have to have the supply on hand, right?
Yeah, and Ushbucks, I don't know. Ushbucks.
Okay.
Yeah.
You ready for next one? You ready for the next one?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, cool. Again, the farthest I've read on these is the headline. So.
All right, some more Fox News.
These are all Fox News.
This is Fox News coming from James Legate. Taiwanese official begs people to stop changing their name to Salmon for free sushi. I think I did see this. Oh God, I love when like journalists try and be pithy. What's in a name? In this case, a free meal. Some diners in Taiwan were able to get some free sushi this week by officially changing their names, but the flood of rechristening requests has one local official begging people to stop. Earlier this week, sushi chain Akindo Sushiro kicked off what local media later dubbed Salmon Chaos after offering free food on Wednesday and Thursday to whole tables of customers named Guiyu, or Salmon. The Taipei Times reported. Diners with aquatic monikers could also get discounts of up to 50% off too. Why was it all salmon? I mean, I don't know. It could be tuna, you could be haddock, you could be shrimp.
Fish. Yeah.
Yeah. Is it worth it, people? Have you ever been to a government building? I mean, have you ever had to fill out forms? I mean, I like sushi. I don't like it that much. Wait, so we got this is from the article, Joe? Yeah, so yeah, another bit from the article. Quote, one freebie-seeking gourmand even set a record for the country's longest name. So the country's longest name, quote, Chen loves Taiwan, abalone, tuna, salmon, snow crab, sea urchin, scallop, lobster, and beef, Mayful, Palais de Chine, Regent, Hilton, Caesar Park, Hotel Royale.
Rolls up the tongue.
Are you allowed to have commas in your name? I guess you, yeah.
Wait. Hold on. So is Chin is the first name, everything else is the surname, right?
Yeah, I guess so.
I love it.
I mean, that's dedication. And I would like to just have a shout out to any of our Taiwanese listeners. If you happen to be an acquaintance or a friend or a family member of Chen Loves Taiwan, abalone, tuna, salmon, snow crab, sea urchin, scallop, lobster and beef, Mayfield, Palais de Chine, Regent, Hilton, Caesar Park, Hotel Royal, could you reach out to him and see if he'd be willing to come on for an interview? I'm making a personal appeal on behalf of Villain for All Seasons podcast. So if you're listening, Chen loves Taiwan abalone, tuna, salmon, snow crab, sea urchin, scallop, lobster and beef, mayful, Palais de Chine, Regent Hilton, Caesar Park Hotel Royal. Come on the show, dude. We wanna hear your story. We will talk about literally whatever crazy ass shit you want to talk about, because you sound like an interesting man.
Just to keep the momentum going, I'm going to share my last one with you.
Okay.
And this is one that might hit close to home for you, as someone who likes to cook.
All right, yeah. For those of our listeners, I am a lover of the culinary arts. Oh yeah, these are my. Oh yes, I almost sent this to you. Yeah, so this is another Fox News thing. Mafia fugitive caught after YouTube cooking show accidentally reveals his identity. Report: man's love for Italian cuisine tipped off law enforcement leads to international arrest in Santo Domingo. Oh man, these lead-ins are great. A mafia fugitive couldn't take the heat, so he went to the kitchen.
I hope I live long enough to write a headline that good.
Oh yeah, this is great. This is a thing, listener, that Dan and I have been obsessed with this ever since, because we became friends back in college because we were in an Italian language class, and this is not an uncommon story. That like, and I mean literally, mafia crime bosses in hiding getting caught for something food related. I remember there was one years ago that there was a high level mafia guy who had been in hiding for like years, and they were able to catch him because he had made a call to, I think, his mother asking for cannoli. Well, what can we say? They love their food, the Italians. So I don't have anything more to say about that other than, news that makes you say no shit. I actually will keep with our new theme of lambasting Italians. So Dan, I'm gonna throw this one into the chat.
Good. This is by Priya Elon. Tagged Gucci. Quote, short, fat, ugly, unquote. Gucci family lashes out at cast appearance in new film. The Ridley Scott biopic tells the story of Patrizia Reggiani's doomed marriage to Maurizio Gucci. And the accompanying photo is kind of this like shocked looking Al Pacino playing Gucci, which is great. Okay, so the Gucci family has hit out against the horrible, and ugly, all in quotes, casting of the House of Gucci film starring Lady Gaga and Adam Driver. The film, which is now in production and directed by Sir Ridley Scott, tells the story of Patrizia Reggiani and her doomed marriage to Maurizio Gucci. Reggiani was convicted of his assassination in 1998 after hiring a hitman to kill him. But members of the Gucci family have expressed their shock after seeing paparazzi photos from the set, which also stars Al Pacino as Aldo Gucci, who played a role in growing the fashion label internationally, and Jared Leto as Paolo Gucci, who helped create the company's famous double G logo. Patrizia Gucci, one of Maurizio's second cousins, told Associated Press the photos of Leto with a bald head dressed in a lilac suit were horrible. I still feel offended, she says, unquote. Of Pacino's portrayal of Aldo Gucci, she said, my grandfather was a very handsome man, like all the Guccis, and very tall, blue eyes, and very elegant. He is being played by Al Pacino, who is not very tall already, and this photo shows him as fat, short, with sideburns, really ugly. Shameful, because he doesn't resemble him at all, unquote. She said the family was truly disappointed. I speak on behalf of the family. They are stealing the identity of a family to make a profit, to increase the income of the Hollywood system. Our family has an identity, privacy. We can talk about anything, but there's a borderline that cannot be crossed. The film, due for release in October, is based on the book by Sarah Gay Forden, The House of Gucci, a sensational story of murder, madness, glamour, and greed. It recounts the story of Reggiani, who hired a hitman to kill Maurizio Gucci outside of his office in Milan in 1995 after he left her for another woman. Reggiani, called a Black Widow by the Italian media during her trial, was released from prison in 2016 after serving 17 years of her 29-year sentence. Gucci, the grandson of Guccio Gucci, the founder of the fashion house, was 46 when he died. Oh man, Jared Leto does look pretty pretty rough. They have a photo of him in the accompanying article. But when a reporter asked Reggiani why she had not shot her ex-husband herself, she said, "My eyesight is not so good. I didn't want to miss."
I think it's just funny that like a second cousin is just fear, and it's like the most Italian, like rich Italian thing ever is like they're supposed to be beautiful and elegant and tall. But I put into the chat, I put in some pictures of the real Aldo and the real Paolo Gucci.
Okay.
And we can maybe have a look and we could see if this is fair, because I kind of want to open this for discussion of, obviously, if you were making a biopic of me, I'd be played by Michael Fassbender, right? So that would be that would have to happen. That's what I think, and no one can convince me otherwise. So I can kind of sympathize that I wouldn't like to be played by someone ugly, but I want to I don't know. I want to open the floor for discussion of if we think these are fair castings.
So sorry, Leto is playing Paolo, right?
Yeah.
I think they got a point here, man.
I think. Wait, you think the Gucci's have a point?
I think Paolo is more attractive than Jared Leto, and I think Jared Leto is usually a pretty decent looking person, you know?
Yeah.
Let's
be clear though, both they are bald. They are both bald men. And Aldo Gucci did have sideburns.
It's not like they didn't try, right?
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like the Paolo one's a little more fair.
So, Paolo is Jared Leto, and then Aldo is Pacino here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think the Pacino one is a little more fair because Pacino looks terrible, and he has for like about 10 years. He's not taking good care of himself. Like there's something going on with his kidneys or something. I'm not sure what, but so I sympathize with that. Also, I was thinking about this. I think if I were to cast Aldo Gucci, why didn't they call James Caan?
Would have been a better choice.
Do we see it? Yeah, right?
Absolutely.
Lesser actor, but still.
Yeah.
But I love the idea of this is like, the film's been described as sort of like a hybrid soap opera or something. I mean, we have yet to watch it. Maybe we can have Vernon back on and we'll do a deep dive into what we actually think about it. But I love the idea that the thing that they for this movie about someone hiring to have somebody assassinated with, and their big gripe is that they didn't make them look beautiful enough. It kind of reminds me of the shit that was happening with one of the which one of the Kardashians was it, who was like trying to get her fucking photos taken offline because it wasn't her photoshopped and stuff.
Oh yeah, one of them.
Yeah, it was Chloe or something. Of just people wanted to have this curated vision of themselves. So I don't know. What do you think? I think Paolo's fair. I think Paolo's fair. I think Aldo they did do a disservice too.
Wait, sorry. I feel like I'm getting messed up. Whoever Jared Leto is playing, Jared Leto is not as good looking as the actual person, I think. Not to say the other person is good looking. I just think there's something more handsome about him than what I'm seeing from Leto. Whereas the Pacino one I think is fair.
Wait, you think Pacino's fair?
Yeah. I mean, I think Pacino's probably better looking than the actual guy. Whereas
okay. I would have thought the opposite.
I think Michael Fassbender's better looking than you.
Well, fuck you.
You glow up. You glow up when Hollywood's playing. Right?
Whatever.
This is actually a good point of diversion.
Neither of them. I think the point is Aldo and Paolo Gucci. I would say neither of them are gorgeous men.
Hardly, yeah.
Yeah, they're not.
They just made all their money like being racist. And now we're demanding that they did.
Yeah. Now we need 6 foot tall like beautiful models playing them.
Yeah.
Going back to more serious things, we're going to be speaking next to Liz Requena about the really tragic, senseless killing of Adam Toledo, and about where this young man was from, and just about policing and policing culture in Chicago. So it should be a good chat.
Yeah, stay tuned. Hi everybody, this is Dan. We're Villain for All Seasons.
Oh, and I'm Ben. Hi.
And this is episode 12. We're going to be interviewing Liz Requena today. Liz is a freelance film editor She's originally from Chicago and grew up in Little Village. We're also going to be focusing on Adam Toledo today, who also grew up in Little Village and was unfortunately killed. Well, Liz, actually, that's a good question to start off on. It actually wasn't last week when he was killed, but this video was suppressed by police for a couple weeks, right?
For 3 days, they didn't release any information of who he was, but they knew that there was a shooting that happened. I think they knew it was a kid, but they didn't release any details, and they refused to release the body cam footage. And the cops were really painting the story. So was Lori Lightfoot. They were right away saying that it was an armed confrontation that happened. So they really demonized Adam Toledo before any of the facts came out.
Yeah, and I was just before or earlier today watching the Lori Lightfoot statement, and it was really clear PR of trying, like, let's not be judge and jury to this. Let's get all the facts and all that bullshit. I mean, wouldn't it be wonderful if we did this in all situations related to police? But yeah, it's once again, it's very clear whose side Lori Lightfoot's on whenever she makes a statement like this.
Definitely.
And just before we get into all the kind of the intricacies of the case, Liz, can you talk a little bit how you became politically active and how you started thinking about politics?
Well, I mean, honestly, my family has always been politically active. My aunt actually was a huge activist in Pilsen. They named a school after her in Little Village, Maria Salcedo. So just coming from that type of family, I was always interested, but I never was like deeply involved either. I was always just kind of focusing on surviving and making a better life for myself. But then now as I got older, I will say that it was kind of like the Bernie Sanders movement that just really made me more active in the political field.
What would you say was specific to Bernie that, I mean, he did for so many people of our generation? Like what specifically about that movement spoke to you personally?
I think him talking about like the issue, just classism, it also made me see things differently because I was always so focused in Latinx issues, growing up in Little Village. I was just more in tune with those type of issues. And I think the Bernie movement helped me see that like we're all going through this. I mean, even poor white people. And I never really like thought about that so deeply before. Like I always knew the Black community was pretty much under attack constantly and oppressed, but I guess it also just made me have a more well-rounded perspective, I guess.
One reason I thought you would be great to talk to about this is not only because you grew up where Adam was from, but you wrote an Instagram story that I thought was really impactful, and I just wanted to read it and we can kind of go from there. But before I do, the Dwayne Reed tweet, maybe you can give a little context around this, or actually, let me just read the whole thing and then we can go from there. So you commented on this guy, Dwayne Reed, this tweet that he had. It said, "If only the, quote, I have zero sympathy for gangbangers, unquote, crowd would donate and volunteer at the after-school programs and wraparound programs that help support families and keep kids out of gangs." And then what you wrote is this: "The lack of compassion from our own community for a 13-year-old child is completely disgusting. Growing up in Little Village, we all knew that kids are recruited from as young as 12, acting like, quote, oh, well, he should have known better, unquote, is part of the problem. It really takes a village to protect these young kids from such predators. After school programs changed my life and were the resources I needed to be where I am today. I'm not just putting this on the community though. I know that there are several people / teachers / organizations that really try to reach out to kids like Adam. At the end, it was the cops that didn't think twice about killing a 13-year-old with his hands in the air. They are in fact the biggest gang of all." And I thought for people who are listening, we can talk about, like, could you give kind of a map of what Chicago looks like and then where Little Village fits in to everything?
Honestly, I don't know if I'm going to be the best at doing that, giving a map.
Totally okay, yeah. But just how Little Village fits into everything in Chicago in that way. You can even just talk at like very high level, like the difference between North and South Side.
I see. Okay. So Little Village is located on the south side of Chicago, southwest side. And you kind of just notice the lack of resources as you start driving south compared to the north side. The north side has just like even better restaurants, better grocery stores. On the south side, there was, especially growing up, I think things have changed, but there's a lot of food deserts. There's a lot of abandoned buildings. There's a lot of empty lots, not as many trees, just these little things that really add to the environment, or, you know, the lack of all this stuff changes the environment compared to the north side. I do feel like the north side of Chicago, especially the areas that are more like the majority are white people, those neighborhoods are just kept up better, and they have more money in them, and the schools are completely different. The schools on the south side are lacking so many resources. They have such old buildings, they're falling apart. And that's another issue to, you know, what happened with Adam. I was reading about the school he was at didn't even have an art program. And one of his teachers noticed, so one day Adam Toledo tagged in the bathroom of the school, and everyone was freaking out about the tag and just painting it over. But this teacher noticed, like, you know, he actually has really great penmanship and he has an interest in art. And maybe if we had an art program, that would have caught his attention and distracted him from the streets. Mm-hmm. It seemed like, you know, he was a special ed student and he couldn't connect with any of his classmates because they kind of just lump in all the special ed students together, even if they all have different types of learning disabilities. So maybe his learning disability wasn't as extreme as some of the other students. You know, I just feel like he felt like he had no friends, no community within his own school. And I think this is a common issue, to be honest. And I mean, these schools are just lacking a lot of resources. And that's where a lot of these after school programs come into play. And I mentioned my experience. And of course, like, I was a completely different kid than Adam, so I can't compare myself to him. But these after school programs were a resource for me to even, and I just did art. Like, all the after school programs that I joined were all art classes because my school was providing not like, they had an art class, but it was super basic and it wasn't every day. It was just extremely limited. So I definitely went outside of the community. And that's the other thing, the after school programs I was a part of were all outside of Little Village. And I was lucky enough that I had a ride. You know, I had someone to drop me off at these programs. A lot of these kids don't even have that. Their parents are working. So we need to have more programs in Little Village where these kids can easily access them. And even if it's not that they're joining to excel, it's also just a distraction. It's just like, just keep them, you know, off the streets when the parents aren't home. We just need more programs like that.
And I just wanted to ask one thing before Ben jumps in here, but I think in context to the kind of pressures that they feel without these programs. And I think that your Instagram post talks about that, but do you mind expanding a little bit more?
What do you mean?
For example, like, without these kind of programs, you talk about like kids getting basically recruited by these gangs.
Yeah. So, I mean, I remember when I was in 6th and 7th grade, some of my friends started getting recruited, or not recruited, but being approached. Luckily, a lot of my friends, they were pretty sharp. Like, I'm thinking of 2 friends specifically. They were really smart kids and they kind of knew like to avoid these guys. But they are these predators that are walking around the community and they're trying to like spot the kid that's by himself, you know, a kid that's just hanging out alone. And they try to act like you're a part of their family and they have your back. And I think they are just very much aware that they go after these young kids on purpose because they know they can manipulate them easily. And luckily, my friends, they knew to avoid these people, but then, I lost touch with some of them, but I know in high school, then it's like, that's just where things really change. Even if you avoided them when you were younger, sometimes in high school, you're just forced into these situations, because then it gets to like being, well, I'm going to beat your ass if you're not, trying to hang with us. Or if you're not trying to hang with us, you're against us. Like I had a friend who moved out of Chicago because it got so bad, because he just didn't want to join a gang and they really wanted him in it. And so they turned him into an enemy just because he pushed back on them. And all he was trying to do was like live his life, go to school. And I have no idea what happened to that kid. But I'm just saying, like, that's extremely common. And I think, my Instagram post, the thing about it was that I was reading a lot of comments that it was very hurtful, because a lot of the comments I was reading about Adam were fellow Mexicans, fellow Latinx people that live in Little Village. And they were just blaming Adam for being killed by the cops. It's like the cops killed a 13-year-old. Like, let's not forget that. And he was unarmed. He dropped the gun. He had his hands up. But instead of everyone questioning the police, they're questioning Adam and his decisions. They're questioning the 13-year-old's decisions. Like, yeah, okay, he wasn't making smart decisions. That doesn't mean he deserved to die. And just because he's not this perfect victim doesn't mean you can't show him some compassion, because especially if you're from the neighborhood, because you know what these kids are growing up around. Even if you come from a good family, this could happen. Kids are peer pressured easily. Your parents can be on it and you still sneak out. Like, my parents were extremely strict and I was still sneaking out of my house,
Mm-hmm.
It's just, you're still a kid at the end of the day. And it's just sad that it was just really sad to see, the community even outcasting Adam. And I do understand where some of that stems, because it is hard to be empathetic towards gang members. I never was. I always struggled with that. I hate gangs. I've lost family, friends, classmates to gang violence. My childhood trauma comes from gangs, from living around gangs. So I get it. I get why it's hard to be compassionate, but you have to remember that this is a vicious cycle, and a lot of these gang members were recruited at such a young age. They might have come from single parent households, or sometimes they're just born into these gangs. Sometimes their parents are just working. Adam Toledo's mom was an essential worker. I don't know what her job was, but she was an essential worker. Who knows what hours she was working? She clearly was probably making minimum wage, or not much more than minimum wage. So she might have had more than one job. And this is just like, and last year was COVID, the pandemic. So Adam didn't even have school anymore. I mean, like, it was remote learning. So it was easier for him to probably sneak out during school hours. And yeah, we don't know if he had supervision, but it's a common reality for these kids. And I think a lot of us are aware of this, and we need to stop just blaming them for making bad decisions and start thinking, like, what can we do to make their lives better? What can we do to protect them? And I just mentioned after school programs, like, just because I had a good experience with them. So that's just one thing that could be helpful for these kids.
I thank you. I think that was very powerful. One thing I just want to mention, because I do feel like this is a factor, especially because you mentioned Pilsen, is the effect of gentrification that's happening in Chicago. And could you maybe just talk about Pilsen a little bit, and some of what gentrification looks like in Chicago at the moment?
So Pilsen was a very different neighborhood when I was growing up in Chicago than it is now. But the gentrification, everyone says like gentrification makes neighborhoods safer, but all you're doing is pushing out people and displacing them and moving them to other parts of Chicago. They just all keep getting pushed. and there's no resources where these working class people get pushed off to. So it's just creating the same issues, but in another area of Chicago. I don't think gentrification is helping any of these families out. It's making it worse for them. They have to find a new home. They have to relocate. They get evicted, and they're being replaced by like yuppies, or not always yuppies, but just not people from that community. And so those new people move in, and they're not used to the culture, maybe they're not used to this type of environment, so they're so quick to call the police over everything, even if it's not something worth calling the police for. And then we all know where like the cops really stand when it comes to Black and brown people. And I mean, I think that's why the cop didn't think twice about killing Adam. And the other reason the cop didn't think twice about killing Adam is because these cops always face zero consequences. So if you know you're going to be good if you kill a kid, like, why not, I guess? I don't know.
Do you think the gentrification and like the changing of demographics and like big finger quotes, making them safer neighborhoods or nicer neighborhoods contributes to that attitude you were talking about in these communities of sort of, I guess you call it like the tough love sort of victim blaming? Do you think that's a factor in that, well, he should have known better thing? Or is that something that's like a little more deep-seated?
I think it's more deep-seated. I think that's a thing among Latinx communities and Mexicans specifically. Like, I know a lot of people were writing stuff like, my kid would never be out at 2 a.m. Or, okay, like another example, after the body cam footage was released, they boarded up downtown Chicago, of course. Chicago right away goes to protect property over people. And so it's like, we have to make sure these businesses are okay because this body cam footage was just released. So these people are probably gonna loot and riot. And actually that didn't happen. The Mexican community, I'm saying Mexican because the majority are Mexicans, but there's all types of Latinx people in Little Village. But they didn't riot, they didn't loot. And I saw comments saying like, yeah, we don't do stuff like that. And kind of like that was a super anti-Black statement, I feel, because I think they're referring to like Black people looting. So I'm just saying like them shaming Adam over the cops, I think that's something that has to do with, that's an issue among like Latinx people, I feel, because they want to comply with white people. They're like, because there's this mindset that if you just keep your head down, you just like comply with the cops, respect authority, you'll be okay. It's only if you're acting out, if you're acting foolish, then you had it coming, which I think is a really toxic mentality to have. And I mean, that's something that white supremacy has really like kind of brainwashed a lot of people of color into thinking this way.
Yeah, I mean, going back to you're talking about being inspired by the Bernie movement, it's that element of divide and conquer, right? Especially with poor folks and people of color, pitting everybody against each other.
Yeah, and I feel like that's something that gentrification has added to, that divide and conquer tactic for sure.
Right, because you want to be on the winning team, I guess, so to speak.
Yeah.
Liz, I was just wondering, when you read those comments, do you feel like it's more of a generational thing? Do you see the community changing at all?
It is all ages. It's all ages, which was very disheartening because it's easy to be like, oh, it's a fucking boomer saying this, but I definitely saw young people saying this, and it's clearly like what their parents are telling them. Mm-hmm. And I will like, some of them are just straight up like bootlickers, let's say. And then others, I think, are actually people that are traumatized by growing up around gangs. And I understand that, it is very hard because gangs do, I mean, like, I think just yesterday, a 7-year-old was killed in Chicago. She was with her family at a McDonald's, and she was just shot in the middle of crossfire between two gangs. And so things like that happen all the time, and in Little Village especially. So yeah, I get why some people are like, well, fuck that. It's one less thug on the street. Like, there is common saying stuff like that. But I think it's just sad that we're so quick to throw people away in this country, and it happens all over the country. Like, and I think that's what the prison also does. It's just like, let's just lock these people away, and like, who cares about them? They're just bad people. Mm-hmm. But I think, there's just more of an effort needs to be done to help a lot of these people. And a lot of these people are just lacking resources from housing issues, from lack of jobs, unemployment, low pay. They can't pay their bills because minimum wage. I mean, how is that supposed to really cover things when things are just getting more expensive? And I think that's the other reason, like with the Bernie movement, he brought a lot of that to light, that some of like just our healthcare system alone is bankrupting people, and people turn to violence. People, mug each other because they can't afford to take care of themselves.
Absolutely. I think the last thing I really wanted to focus on with Adam before we kind of build this out into kind of the grander narrative of what's going on right now is, do you think this is going to shine a light on more police brutality and killing towards the Latinx community?
I don't know. I hope so. I mean, there were thousands of protesters that came out for Adam. Like, I think it's important to have this discussion on the gang issue in a lot of these communities, like Little Village, because we do need to address it. Like, why is a 21-year-old hanging out with a 13-year-old? But we can't let that also distract people from who actually killed Adam at the end of the day. It was the cops. And so I think people are losing a little bit of focus on that. If anything, I hoped that people would realize like how common our struggles are. And I'm talking about like Black and brown people, because last year during the protests, there was a lot of, there was some tension between, in Chicago specifically, there was tension between the Black community and the Latinx community. And I hope a lot of those people that were not, that were like kind of defending the police for killing people, for killing Black people, I hope they realize now, like, hey, they don't care about you either. But the issue is that Adam was hanging out with the wrong crowd, with gangs. And so I kind of see the Latinx community just kind of writing him off, kind of just saying he was a bad kid who had it coming, which is really sad.
That is really sad. And it's something that I think, I'm glad that we're having this conversation, because I do feel like adding this context really does bring some humanity and compassion to each person that is killed by police. And Ben said something in our episode, our pre-show episode, that it last week kind of felt like deja vu in regards to everything that was going on. And Ben, I was just wondering, can you kind of reiterate what you were talking about, why it felt like that?
Well, yeah, I'm from Minnesota, from the Twin Cities, and of course we have the murder of George Floyd on trial right now, Derek Chauvin, and we'll see, what that result is going to be. But then, of course, just as this trial was going on, we had another senseless killing of a young Black man. And it just reminded me of last year, and just it seems especially like last year, but of the last several years, it just seems really relentless. That is like, as soon as one happens and we're mourning this death, then another one happens. And it's just, it really, I understand why it's hard for people to keep on this subject in a sense, because it's so relentless. It just seems like a conveyor belt of tragedies that keeps coming and coming and coming. And Chicago is definitely no different to that. I feel like it makes it easy for certain people that aren't connected to these communities, who are sort of outside but sympathetic, to sort of start to turn off in a way, because it becomes such a hopeless situation.
I was just wondering, Liz, how you felt, just kind of like the emotional toll it takes to think about these stories. And I know with Adam, it was particularly impactful. But even thinking about George Floyd almost a year later now, and kind of what 2020 has been, but even before that, and even like kind of how we're feeling now. So I was just seeing how you felt like the emotional impact has been, even beyond Adam.
I mean, it's been horrible. Like, yeah, I mean, we've all, first, I think it started with at the end of last year, Breonna Taylor, those cops were not convicted. They got to walk free for the most part. And then now George Floyd's killer, Derek Chauvin. I don't even know.
Chauvin.
Whatever that asshole.
We don't need to pronounce it properly.
I mean, he's having a 4-week trial, and we all saw that video. It was a very painful, 8-9 minute video of him killing George Floyd. And just the fact that his trial is that long, I don't feel makes much sense. And it's very disheartening. As someone who was protesting heavily last year, it's really disheartening to see the protests sadly haven't slowed anything down. And we had some of the biggest protests we have had in our lifetime. And these protests were worldwide as well. And cops are still killing Black people senselessly, and Latinx people, and they're killing white people too. They're killing Asian Americans as well. I mean, cops are just still killing people, and it's because they face zero consequences. So it's hard to be hopeful right now. It really is. And I talked with friends about this, because a lot of the friends that were also heavily protesting are just kind of feeling like, damn, nothing is changing. This isn't enough, what we're doing. And, I do feel that the protests have made some sort of a difference. They definitely raised awareness, and there's little policies that are happening. I know in New York, what is it called? Qualified
immunity.
Yeah, that the cops have. So now that's kind of been taken away from them, at least in New York. But we'll see how much of a consequence they will still face. They could still get away with stuff even without that.
Yeah, it seems it's a good step, but it seems like, to me, it's just something that's going to kind of slow it down a little bit.
Right. Everything, it's just baby steps still that are happening.
Well, I wonder in this, since we're coming here to talking about protest movements, and we've talked about this on the show too with other people, of just again, that it can, especially I think after the year of COVID, we're just all so beaten down that it's really hard to keep momentum going, right? But one specific question that's now coming up again and was really demonized last year is that wonderful phrase, defund the police or abolish the police. I was wondering I feel like I could guess what your opinion is on it. I'm happy to have you state it, but I also wonder what you think about the reaction of the broader public has been, and maybe specifically in the Latinx community, when there are people who want to protest these horrible killings and want to make a difference, but then all of a sudden when you start talking about the defunding the police, people are, Blue Lives Matter light.
Yeah, I don't know how that slogan is so offensive, is more offensive than a cop killing an unarmed child. And I feel like defunding the police is the compromise, to be honest. I'm for abolishing the police, but defunding them is the compromise. And that's, in Chicago, I think the police in Chicago get about 43, maybe even 49% of the state budget, the city budget. That's insane. The police are getting the majority of the budget. Lori Lightfoot gave the police $281 million from the COVID relief federal money that Chicago got. That money was meant for Chicago, for the people of Chicago, for communities like Little Village. And what did she do? She gave a huge chunk of it to the cops. And I think that just says a lot about her and Chicago and the priorities of this country, that nobody even saw. A lot of people didn't see that as an issue. They're like, oh yeah, they should get more funding, the cops. And everyone questions, like, why are all these people looting? Why is all this crime happening? And you see the unemployment rate in Chicago, and it's very high. I don't know the exact number, but it's always very high. And I mean, it's like, maybe if you start giving these people jobs and housing, things might be different. Things might not be as violent.
Well, and of course, there's my least favorite thing to ever hear from people who are against defunding the police is no, we need to fund them. I want them to be better trained.
Right.
And we need more funding. And like, that was sort of my question of your thoughts on this, because it's sort of cloaked as this, like, yes, I am progressive, but I think there's it's like this sort of pragmatism about it. It's this sort of neoliberal thing of like, oh no, I totally sympathize with the problem, but I actually think the way to fix it is throwing more money at it.
Right. And the training, right? It hasn't really done anything. I mean, I think last year they took away the chokehold, or they said that cops couldn't do the chokehold in New York City. Mm-hmm. And the NYPD had a complete meltdown. They were acting like kids, I feel, when they took that away. And I think that they're reinstating it, actually. There's a whole ongoing battle.
Really?
On it. Yeah.
This actually, in our pre-show, we were talking about, I was making the point that cops are just a bunch of big babies.
They really are.
Who took away their chokeholds and they cried.
Yeah, they really did. And they're really fighting hard to get it back, which is just crazy.
I love choking people.
This is one thing that Ben and I do talk about in the pre-show, and Liz, I know you and I have talked about this before, but there was that video over the summer of these. They weren't even protesters. They were just people who put roses on the steps of that police precinct in Greenpoint, mourning the victims of police violence, right? And so it was like an advocacy campaign, and no one was out there protesting. It was simply putting a rose there. And there was a video of a cop who came outside the precinct and stomped on the roses and were kicking the stems out. And I guess no one is going to have a great answer here, but I'm interested in as to what you think is like, why don't they lean in and become like a community player, which I think is, I don't know. I would assume people would want that. They wanted that at some point, and now it's starting to become literally abolish the police.
Well, I mean, I really feel the police are gangs. It's a gang. Mm-hmm. It's a really high funded gang that's backed by the upper class. Mm-hmm. And because that's who they're here to serve and protect their property, basically. I think it's important to remember the roots of the police. And why a lot of us don't feel that the police can be reformed through training. It's not a few bad apples, but it's because when we look at the roots of the police, they were slave catchers in the beginning, and then it just they were reimagined and they became police officers later. But I think when you have such evil roots, I don't see it really changing. And then we find out more and more that a bunch of far-right people, that cops are actually white supremacists there's a lot of them that have infiltrated, which I don't even know if we can say that, because I feel like that's just police to begin with.
Yeah, we talked about this in a previous episode of like that far right, like far right extremists were on the rise in the military and the police, and we were kind of like, well, duh. And it's like, I don't know. Yeah, I think you're right though. It's like, are they on the rise, or is this just the formula?
It's the formula, exactly. And it's always been a thing, and it's just coming out into the open. And, you know, every time these cops do something like kill someone, they're always like, oh, these are a few bad apples. But I was just reading about a case, I don't remember her name, but she was a woman, a police officer in Buffalo. And this happened a few years ago, like maybe even 10 years ago, but she stopped a bad cop from using excessive force on someone. And so she used excessive force on the cop to stop him from possibly killing someone. And she was the one that got fired. Because I mean, when she got fired, she lost all of that. But it's like, who did the system protect? The guy who was, you know, actually the bad apple. They ended up protecting him over the person that was like, hey, this is wrong what you're doing. You're abusing your authority. She stopped him, and she's the one that got fired. And I feel like that's extremely telling of who the police really are. And that's why I don't think any type of training or reforming, you know, any of that will change anything. It's not working. I mean, we really do need to start from scratch. I think community policing is better, because a lot of, and this, you know, they've been talking about this with Dante Wright, right?
Yeah.
From Minnesota, that a lot of the cops in that area are not from the community. They're from outside. And I think that does make a difference, because when you're not living in the community, you don't know a lot of these people. You're going to just resort to stereotypes. You're going to assume a lot. And it's just easier to be aggressive towards people you're not surrounded by on the regular, you know, by your own community that you're familiar with already. So I think that's one step that could make a difference, just more like community policing.
That's so interesting you bring that up, because we actually do talk about that a little bit in the pre-show. I remember, I think this was during the Freddie Gray incident in Baltimore, killing in Baltimore. And Jesse Jackson said that the community there used the cops as kind of like a invading force, I think his words were. Or
occupying force.
Occupying force, excuse me, yeah. And you know, back then that resonated with me, and like I think at the time it was not really understood in those terms, and I feel like now that is coming to light in an unfortunate but probably helpful way, I hope.
Yeah, I hope so. There is more of a dialogue now, for sure, but I mean, people are dying, so the dialogue is not enough.
Yeah. I have two last things that I want to talk about, but I think these might be bigger discussions. But can you talk about Lori Lightfoot and this whole dynamic with Chicago?
Oh my God. I mean, she's just been horrible. And I think it's just been a huge letdown. I mean, this is just when identity politics really just backfires, or just, you know, reveals itself to how toxic it really can be, because people were thinking she's a gay woman, she's Black, and I mean, just a woman too, that she's going to be here for marginalized people, but she really hasn't. I mean, her background is with the police force, and she's just been kind of protecting them this whole time. You know, when the protests happened, you know, that's the other thing, when everything with Adam Toledo, like, all her statements are just complete bullshit, because she tries to act like, oh, we failed him, and she's crying and just like trying to act like she actually cares about him. But then last summer, a lot of the protests that were happening in Chicago were led by young people, by students, by CPS students. And she trapped a lot of them downtown in the middle of a protest, downtown Chicago. She basically gave the order that like anyone who's downtown is going to get arrested. You have 20 minutes to leave the area. But then they raised the bridges, trapping a bunch of these kids. So what's going to happen? They're going to clash with the police, and a bunch got arrested. So where was she there for CPS students? like she showed her true colors of what she really thinks about these kids. She's not on their side. And I just feel like she should resign. I wish she would resign.
Yeah, where are those calls? We have calls for Maxine Waters to resign, but
there's been calls for Lori Lightfoot to resign this weekend specifically. And then this vicious rumor started. This is crazy. I don't know if you guys heard about the Lori Lightfoot rumors that happened this weekend.
Vanessa actually just mentioned something, so go. I don't know if the context. So yeah.
This is so okay. So there was crazy rumors on Twitter saying that Lori Lightfoot was caught having a threesome, cheating on her wife, and that she's been hooking up with different cops in Chicago, and that her wife found out and caught her at a hotel with someone else, and her wife beat her ass, and that there was like video footage of this. There was never video footage. Like everyone's like, where's the footage? It didn't come out. Lori Lightfoot came out with a statement kind of blaming it on like homophobic people started this narrative, and it's just because I'm a gay Black woman that they're coming after me type shit. And okay, so these rumors, I didn't really believe them because I'm like, I'm not believing what I read on Twitter anymore,
Mm-hmm.
But it shows like everyone was having a field day with it. Chicago really seems to dislike Lori Lightfoot. But the interesting thing I heard about these rumors was that apparently they were started on Facebook police pages, like these police Facebook groups. And actually one of my brothers told me, because my brother, he lives by Midway Airport, and there's a lot of cops that live in his area, and he like hates it because he sees like Blue Lives Matter signs all the time. But he was like, you know what, the cops don't even like Lori Lightfoot either. So I don't really know what that's about. I don't really know any cops, to talk to them about this stuff. But apparently they're the ones that started these rumors about Lori Lightfoot. And I think there's always some type of truth behind rumors. So I'm like, maybe she is doing something. I don't know. But it's interesting that apparently even the cops don't like her, which I think is weird because I feel like she's been more on their side than anyone else's. I don't know if maybe it's just the racist cops that don't like her. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like the cops just don't like anybody.
Right. Yeah. They're always big babies. Like, oh, nobody cares about us. They just let us get away with murder all the time.
I know, it's really tough. Yeah.
I'm so glad we're able to air this rumor.
You heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Lori Lightfoot is a hoe. No. I don't want to slut shame though. I really don't.
No, live your truth, Lori Lightfoot. If this is what you want to do, we're not going to kink shame you.
That's not why I want you to resign. That's the be. So that's why people were saying that she would resign, and I was like, when I first read that, if these rumors are true, that would be shameful that she resigns over this sex scandal. Then like all the other terrible things. Yeah, there's a whole list of why she should resign, and that's not it.
Yeah, so Lori Lightfoot, you should resign so you have more time to partake in your dirty sex acts. I don't know if we can air any of this.
Liz, just kind of thinking about like what we experienced this is something I mentioned kind of like when we refer to Black Lives Matter, is that it did start during the Obama administration due to a lot of killings that happened, Black men and brown people that happened then, but really gained the traction during the Trump years. And I just kind of want to talk about like your feelings about Trump during this time, I guess, and like what you see with Biden now.
I do feel like people's guards have kind of dropped. There's definitely not the same amount of energy against Biden that there was around Trump. The border crisis, quotations. During the Trump years, everything he did was like right away, huge backlash, which was great. You know, he deserved it. And he was doing terrible things, but then it's like Biden isn't doing any. He closed the border recently. He's trying to build a smart wall. He wants to have drones flying around the border to stop people. I mean, he's a little more tactful, and so that's a little more worrisome. He's also, what did he just do? He lowered the number of refugees that they are gonna bring into the country. He's gonna have it the same number that Trump had. He's keeping a lot of the policies that Trump had in place. And now people decide to discuss how complicated it is at the border, how complicated this whole issue is, when none of that really existed with Trump. So I think, yeah, there's a lot of like false hope going on right now with Biden. And what did I mean, I guess that's liberals for you, right? I don't even know what to say. It's very frustrating. And yeah, with Obama, that's when the Black Lives Matter movement really kicked off, because it came to light just how many Black people were being murdered, and it was televised constantly. The videos were going viral. And I actually had a few friends that last year when the protests sparked, they didn't want to join any of the protests because they were like, we were already here back in 2013. And they went nowhere, the protests. And I was like, no, this time it's different because of the amount of people. I was hoping that, which was very naive. But, you know, I was also thinking like this pandemic, you know, we all were forced to take a pause, and we were all forced to really pay attention to what was going on. And then, you know, everyone hated Trump, so they were a little more active than usual. So I really thought that some type of difference would happen. And like, you know, like we said, there's been baby steps, but it's still not enough.
I think that is probably a kind of sad note, but an uplifting no way to end on. You know, I think baby steps, I guess, do matter in some way, but clearly a lot more has to happen. A lot more of them have to happen, I suppose.
Yeah. I just don't know also what's it going to take for these cops to start paying the consequences, because people can bash Adam Toledo, which I think is completely unfair. But then what about Tamir Rice? You know, he was a little boy who had a toy gun and he was shot. So, you know, I just think that I don't know how anyone cannot see the issues within the police department in this country. It's just endless, these stories.
Liz, thank you much for your time. That was great.
Cool.
Thank you. That's
probably not the right thing to say. Thank you for having me.
Liz, do you want to promote your work at all? Like, I don't know, is anything you'd want to share about that?
Nah, I don't. I'm chilling right now.
She's a freelancer.
Totally.
They got to pay her more.
Liz, thank you for talking with us, and
yeah,
I'll hit you up on GChat.
All right, yeah, I'll talk to you guys. Have a good night. It was nice chatting.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.